Influence is one of the most powerful tools a manager has. In this episode, we'll discuss what it is, why it's important, and how you can increase yours and use it most effectively. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you. Influence is all about communication, and communication is how you move from merely providing information to entertaining, directing, or inspiring others, and eventually to influencing them. And influence is more than just words. It's about building a strong emotional bond with your audience. It's important to keep in mind that when we say audience in this episode, we mean everything from a single person to a room full. And influence is all about building an emotional connection with your audience. And that connection is what determines whether or not people are going to like you, trust you, and want to follow you.
I think that's really important, and that's what we're going to be talking about. You achieve the emotional connection first through your behavior. This you do by showing warmth and an openness to the other person or people. And that does a couple of things. First, it emotionally invites them into your space. And second, it gives you an opportunity to show self-confidence.
Fred, it's sort of circular there in a way. The people who are the most open generally have a lot of self-confidence to begin with. So, how do you kind of fake it till you make it?
No question. There are going to be some people who are more comfortable with showing warmth and openness in the beginning, and some people who are going to find it a little bit more difficult. And the thing that is most important to keep in mind is that it's not a situation where some people are going to be successful and some are not. Everyone can learn the skills. So what you may have to do is you feel that it's a little bit harder for you. You may need to practice with people, and you want to practice with people where you know you're going to be successful. And it doesn't necessarily always need to be about business. It can just be a conversation with them in order to practice.
Right. No, you're right. It's one of those things. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Let's talk for a minute about what we mean by influence.
Yeah, just one other point first. We're talking about that you want to invite others into your space and you want to show self-confidence, but then you have to prove your competence with a consistent message so that your words match your behavior.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to talk about that a little more when we talk about how important trust is in having influence. If people don't trust you, you're not going to be able to influence them. And essentially, influence is the power to change or affect someone or something. In particular, it's the ability to cause change without directly forcing changes to happen. What do we mean by that? It means, you can bring about change. You can get people to do something just by ordering them to do it. If you're the boss, you do it because I say to do it, or bad things will happen if you don't. But what you want really is you want to, with influence, you get people to do what you want because they feel it's in their best interest to do it, and that they want to do it because it's the best course of action for them personally. So, you're really saying the message is, I'm helping you to see that this is the best course of action because it's a benefit to both of us. So you get them to internalize the desire to do what you want them to do rather than them feeling that they have to do it.
What do you have to be careful about when you're doing that? I mean, can you influence them too much, or so that it appears to be too much or too strong?
You mean like sort of being a Svengali and you've kind of hypnotized them into doing stuff?
Well, yeah, not necessarily that, but coming down almost too forcefully in how you're trying to get them to come on board.
Well, I think the whole idea is that you really don't have to do anything forcefully. I mean, you just, because you've built this relationship ideally with your staff, they trust you, and when you say we need to do X, they go, yeah, okay, that's going to be the best for us.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it comes back to the whole idea of trust.
Yeah. So why is influence important to the manager? Well, the thing is that as the manager, you will have influence. People will be watching you to see how you behave and what you ask for and so forth. But the thing to keep in mind is that influential leaders are more effective leaders as well. And it gives you great opportunity to work with your people. You can stand out in the group. You can help everyone on your team to feel that they fit in. And you can persuade others outside of your department to agree with you and gain their respect.
Yeah, I mean, but I think one of the reasons it makes you more effective as a manager, if you can use your influence, is that you don't have to. It takes a lot of energy to force people to do something, whereas if they want to do it because you influence them to do it, you made them want to do it, then you don't have to keep expending energy to make sure that they follow through and do it. They're going to do it. So it just makes you more effective because you don't have to spend as much energy to make sure that they haven't drifted off course, that they really are doing it because they want to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So how do you get influence? How do you build your influence? How do you become more influential? And as we've been talking about, the fundamental building block of influence is trust. I mean, you can't influence people if they don't trust you. And I mean, trust you both to mean what you say and trust you that you're able to do what you say. In other words, they got to trust you both your honesty and your competence. I worked with a fellow who would say whatever he thought you wanted to hear. And the problem was nobody trusted him to follow through because the next person that come along he thought would want to hear something different, so he'd say something different. Or he would say he was going to do something because he thought that's what you wanted to hear, but he really had no intention of doing it because he would have moved on to something else and be telling somebody else what he thought they wanted to hear.
We should deal at some point in conversation, not today, but talking about how to deal with a boss like that.
Oh yeah, no, yes, because we've all had them, and they're not easy to deal with, and you got to figure out how to, work around it, not go around the boss, but work around their shortcomings. The good news about trust is that people are generally programmed to trust people. And in other words, I mean, you trust a total stranger not to run a red light and hit you as you're crossing the street. So you trust you can trust strangers unless you're given a reason not to trust them. You saw them run a red light already, and so you're not going to trust that they won't do it again. But it's also unfortunately true that once you give somebody a reason not to trust you, it's very hard to get the trust back. You really have to work at it.
That is absolutely true, and all of us have examples that we can talk about where that situation happened.
Yeah, and it's very hard to get the trust back. So, without trust, you got no influence. So, the real lesson here is never underestimate the importance of keeping your promises and commitments. They really are the backbone of your effectiveness as a manager, your ability to influence people as a manager. You've got to just act like any promise or commitment you make is sacred, because if you don't fulfill on it, then you're going to lose whatever influence you have over your staff.
I absolutely agree with that. And the thing is that you want to make sure that you don't start making more commitments than you can handle.
Exactly. I mean, that was a big problem of the fellow we were just talking about, that he would quote unquote make commitments and wouldn't follow through. And it really demoralized the staff, made them inefficient, ineffective, because they didn't know what was gonna happen next.
Yeah. The next building blocks of influence are connections. On the one hand, we can say the more connections you have, the greater your sphere of influence will be. But let's be honest, it takes time to build connections. And one of the things that you want to do as a manager is you want to be smart and strategize who are the most important of the connections that I need to make in order for my business to be successful. And then you want to force rank those most important connections so that you always know when you have time to spend in relationship building who it is that you're interested in spending the time with. Let me give you a quick example. I'm coaching a fellow who's the head of an engineering area, and the people that are the most important to him are the head of operations, the head of sales, and the head of marketing. So he has to make sure that among all of the other connections that he's trying to build, and that is including, you're talking about his own staff, you're talking about people in other departments, and you're talking about the clients, we're talking about everyone, but you need to be absolutely clear where you're spending your time, because none of us have unlimited time.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, we do have an episode, as you know, on networking, which is related to this topic. So if you haven't heard that episode, you should check it out.
It's important when you're doing this, whenever possible, to meet people face to face. It's tough to bond and build trust through virtual meetings or texts or emails. It doesn't happen the same way. The subtleties of trust building don't travel well in those media.
Yeah, I think that's a real issue in our new virtual or hybrid work environment. I think we're just beginning to really understand what that's done to work dynamics, and we'll be looking into that going forward. Yeah.
The other thing is we spoke before about some people are more at ease with showing warmth and openness to people, and some people have more difficulty with it. It can be as simple as meeting someone at a water cooler and discussing either a business issue they may something about or a personal issue. I could give you any number of examples of people that I've had where they just ask a coworker, "How are you doing?" and the coworker told them something about an interest or a hobby that they have that was very important to the person who did the asking, and they followed up and became interested in the same interest. So there's real truth in the old saying that they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. I think the other thing to keep in mind in that your advice to just start casual conversations is to avoid any topic that might be controversial, because the idea is to build bonds, not to build walls. So you want to stay away from anything that might cause a wall to go up, because it turns out you each strongly disagree on a topic. So keep it like, personal interests, hobbies, movies you've seen, whatever. Yeah.
Yep, that makes absolute sense. In these individual meetings, when we're talking about the individual meetings, you want to meet the person with a smile. Smile always goes a long way. Good eye contact, a friendly disposition, and tell them that you're glad that you're getting together. Then you want to be able to listen and learn to what the other person is trying to say, and you also want to gather information about their drivers, motivators, and their thoughts on the business, because they may come up with some very good thoughts. You want to show that you're listening by asking questions about their positions. You want to make sure that there's no distractions, that your cell phone rings, you don't answer it in the middle of this conversation. You want to, if it's a scheduled meeting, you want to make sure that you're consistent, on time, professional, and caring. And you want to be trustworthy and reliable to show up for the meeting.
Answering the phone, that reminded me of the fellow I was talking about earlier. If you were in a meeting with him, if his phone rang, he would always answer it. And it got to be a joke among the staff that this guy, he was almost Pavlovian in his inability to let the phone ring if he was in the middle of a serious conversation with you or a group of people. And, it just shouted that he really didn't care that much about whatever it was you were talking about.
It's exactly right. No, it's a lack of respect.
Yeah, and whoever unknown person on the phone was more important than you, or what you were discussing right then. So those things, you're right, are just so important. You don't think about them, but they really do impact on the influence and the trust that somebody has.
For young people today, it is really important to show respect. And then finally, you want to be honest, transparent, and open.
Yeah, always. Well, that's right. Comes back to the whole trust thing. The minute you violate that, you've lost your influence with your audience.
Yep.
So in this episode, we've talked about the importance of influence and how it makes you a more effective manager, and how to build it and maintain it, and the importance of trust and never violating the trust that your staff puts in you. We hope you have found this podcast useful, and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.